his life. In case you do not know who I am or recognize me with my long hair, my name is Jeremy Merritt, and I'm Kevin's one and only son. I would also like to think that I was one of his best friends because, as many of you already know, he was mine. He and I spent the lion's share of my childhood and teen years together, and I felt that I could rely on him for everything, whether it was for advice, money, beer, borrow his car, more beer, just kidding, or just to be a friend who I could hang out, grill a few burgers, and watch a ball game. He, along with my beautiful mother, Linda, raised me to be the person I am today, and for that I am very thankful. He taught me to be thoughtful and kind in personal situations, and to be strategic, thorough, and to believe in myself in business ones. He encouraged me to feel that I could do anything. He gave me the confidence to go into closed-door negotiations with big-shot attorneys and businessmen in New York City and hold my own, which I would have never have thought a Hoosier like me would have been able to do. I learned so much from him, and it was a great sadness that I'm standing here with and sharing these words today. My father used to tell me, when you lie down with dogs, you get up with fleas. With this advice to make sure that I've kept my sights high for the future ahead of me. Unfortunately, he may have not heeded his own advice. My poor dad struggled with his happiness and in turn his health. And ever since his brother, Kelly, passed away a few years ago, then right after that, he lost his sister, Karen. From that point on, I watched him try to battle his demons and addictions and lose. Throughout the past few years, he had done a lot of things to hurt a lot of people, including myself, my mom, and my sister. And for that, on his behalf, I would like to apologize, because I knew that was really not him. Quite honestly, based on conversations I had with him recently, I'm not even sure that he knew what was going on towards the end. I know that after Kelly's death, he tried to stay away from things that would hurt him, and we talked about it at length, but he just couldn't do it. The choices he made from that point on were made strategically to make it very easy for him to succumb to his addictions, and ultimately that is what got him in the end. He was the most kind and loving person and a wonderful father, and it makes me so sad to think how hurt he was by life, even when I was on the receiving end of his actions. However, the Kevin that I'm choosing to remember, and encourage you all to do as well, loved life and was energetic, vivacious, loving, and a real joker. I just want to share one great story which is my favorite memory of my dad, and I hope you'll remember him this way too. When I was around 6 or 7 years old, my dad had just gotten home from a business trip. He had to be away from us 2 or 3 nights a week because he was a traveling salesperson. My mom cooked him a hamburger, which he loved the way my mom would cook them for him on the skillet on the stove. Of course, the burger was cooked medium rare. He had finished almost half, and he called me over and asked that I take the center bite, telling me it will be the best bite I will ever have in my life. It was so good, I will never forget the taste. And still today, I like to eat my burgers that way. This is an example of how he would try to sacrifice to make anyone in his family happy. Thank you so much for letting me share my thoughts with you. I really appreciate it. I pray my father rest in peace.
I'm Kelsey. I'm Kevin's only daughter, and I was named after him. There are a lifetime worth of memories that are embedded in the corners of my mind when I think about my dad. In fact, when I look to my family, as we sadly sit here today, I know that you too share a lifetime's worth of memories with him and of my father. We share a past, a history. History is defined as the series of events connected with something or someone. I've been his only daughter for 26 years. My brother and Kevin's only son, Jeremy, has been his son for 32. Our wonderful mother shared nearly 40 years with Kevin. And his parents, Gene and Jack, and his siblings shared far more than we ever did. A birth, a childhood, and their entire lives. Regardless of the confines of time or space, the ups and downs experienced by our family over the many years, the prevalent, universal, and ongoing theme here is history. And history is irrevocable. No son or daughter should ever have to stand up to give a speech about their father's death this early in their life. I acknowledge that my dad will never walk me down the aisle, hold his future grandchildren, and I can never again call for his good advice, which will be an unsurmountable void. He will miss his first and only son, Jeremy, married the love of his life, Sonda, in September, and there's nothing that we can do to change that. But in his untimely death, I will choose to remember the Kevin Merritt of years past, not the man that is being buried here today. I didn't know that man. And most of us, the majority of us sitting here today, didn't know that man either. I'll remember the competent, compassionate, smart, and coherent man. The father that came to every single one of my concerts in dirty dive bars, nightclubs, and on tour. He was always in the front row and always singing the words, which I'll admit was sometimes a little embarrassing. The front row man, but he was just so proud of mine and my brother's accomplishments, and he was so supportive and would have done anything so that we could live out our dreams. I'll remember calling him every day and him answering the phone in the typical enthusiasm one could expect from Kevin Merritt. "Kelsey," he'd say. I always found that funny and comforting. I remember competitive games of Guess Who and Saturday mornings watching SpongeBob SquarePants. I remember him doing yard work in our home in Foster Grove and Carmel and then giving him a snack when he was done, mostly consisting of Twinkies because that was probably the extent of my cooking skills and still is. So, my parents were so proud of that house. My whole family was. We built homes, built businesses, and we're starting to see the rewards of such hard work. Kevin was always an enthusiastic spectator at my brother's hockey games and sporting events. He was always coaching and ever inspiring. He and my brother were the best of friends. I remember supervising the mini cutthroat pool tournaments between my dad and his best friend, my grandfather Ed. Every time my dad made a shot, he'd stand up high on his toes with a stick in hand, and he looked like a ballet dancer. So we named him the Ballet Man. That, and he was always wearing these awful white socks that came up to his mid-calf. His fashion sense was suspect, but I loved my dad anyways, and he was the funniest. Kevin Merritt was the smartest, most positive person I have ever met. He always told my brother that if we worked hard, surrounded ourselves with the right people, we could go as far in life as we wanted. He was our living proof. Another historical chapter in the story of my father was his marriage to our mother, Linda. My parents met at North Central High School. He was the son of the tough and feared English teacher, Jean Merritt, who's sitting here. They married in the June of 1976, and when my parents were first starting out, he mopped floors in a hospital. She worked in insurance, and they made their ends meet. They say behind every successful man is a woman kicking his ass, and my dad became wildly successful in business. And my mother was behind him every single step of the way. I know from experience that the people you choose to surround yourself with will influence your success and your well-being. Unfortunately, as of late, I'm not so sure he was properly supported. That is heartbreaking to me and my family. I know from lengthy conversations with my mother that she holds a very, very special place in her heart for my dad and late ex-husband. They have a history and a family, and that still stands. It is irrefutable. And if he could speak for himself, I know he'd say the same. I almost finished, I swear. My father is gone too soon, and there are so many things about our relationship I wish we could change in the past few years. When he died, he was a shell of a human being that he used to be. It is true that we were estranged at the time of his death, and that will always be my burden to carry. The man I knew would have never wanted it this way. I received a few telling signs in the last year that he was desperately reaching out for help from my brother. We, in turn, his children, were not aware of his rapidly declining health, and in the end, we don't believe he was properly taken care of, nor did he receive the good support or influences he needed to battle his issues. I guess it was a little foreboding when he would tell my brother and I always to surround ourselves with good people in order to be successful. His death is the saddest example of not following that advice. We lost a father, a role model, a son, a brother, and a great confidant, but I will honor and champion his life by waking up every day and making him proud, just like I know he would have wanted. I implore you, my dear family, to do the same, because what his death can't and won't take away is our history, and no one or nothing can do that. Thank you for coming.